Well, this is the first time I have a press conference here. I do my press conference in Geneva. I'm sorry, but it's much friendlier over there. Anyway, okay. Good afternoon. My name is Mahmoud Elkhafif. I'm the coordinator of UNCTAD Assistance with Palestinian People. Thank you for coming. I'll take you through a report which will be considered by the General Assembly tomorrow. To start with, I would like to let you know about the mandate, why UNCTAD is doing this report. UNCTAD is doing this report because it was asked by the General Assembly in 5 consecutive General Assembly resolutions since 2014 to assess, evaluate, and then report on the economic cost of occupation. You have the resolution numbers if you would like to go back to them. Of course, the concept of the economic cost of occupation is a very wide concept and also is not a well-defined concept. That's why the report I'm presenting to you today is the second report. The first report which produced, the third report. The first report which was produced 2 years or 3 years ago, in which we tried to define the concept of the economic cost of occupation, what it could be considered as economic cost of occupation. We don't have a definite answer for what could be economic cost of occupation, but it's an evolving thing because the occupation also, they do have different measures every day, so sometimes it's very difficult. So this report comes under the umbrella of the economic cost of occupation. This report focuses on one specific element of the economic cost of occupation, which is the physical cost of occupation. How much does the Palestinian government lose in terms of revenues because of the occupation? When we tried to work on this issue, it was a bit difficult because we realized that there are two items or two elements that could be considered under the physical cost of economic. So let me just take you one step back. Okay, we have the umbrella of the economic cost of occupation. One element of this umbrella is the physical cost, the revenue that's lost. Of course, there is an element of lost production or uprooted trees or lost in revenue in tourism. So that's why I'm telling you the economic cost of occupation is a huge thing. And what we would like to do, as we have been instructed by the GA, is to evaluate and then report, document this cost for the whole Palestinian economy. Now, as I said, we are focusing on the fiscal cost. The problem with the fiscal cost, there are two elements here. The economic relationship between Palestine and Israel is under within the framework of something called the Paris Protocol. The Paris Protocol is the framework, the policy framework that defines the relation between the Palestinian and the Israeli. So what we have seen here that there are something called fiscal leakage. The fiscal leakage is also a cost, fiscal cost, but this revenue that was supposed to go to the Palestinian according to the Paris Protocol, but instead it leaked to the Israeli treasury. So this one item. And then there is the other item of the fiscal cost is the revenue that's lost, but it's not leaked. In a sense, revenue, because of occupation, because the measure imposed by the occupation, it's lost to the Palestinian and not leaked to the Israeli. So this is very important to keep in mind because it was difficult for us to define this. Now, the second point that I would like to stress is whatever we have reported here is does not include everything. In a sense, the economic cost, even the fiscal cost of occupation, is an evolving thing because we have difficulty in measuring all the elements. So what we are saying and what we are saying that what we are reporting today or tomorrow to the GA is not a final figure. It is an evolving thing. It could, the more we have information, the more we have data, then we could calculate more cost. Now, as I said before, the fiscal cost of occupation is divided in two elements. The leakage to Israel, and basically this revenue that goes to Israel, which is supposed to go to, and then the other losses that was supposed to go to the Palestinian but doesn't go to the Palestinian or the Israeli only because it's lost because of occupation. Okay, very briefly, what are the elements that we covered under the leakage? The revenue that has been leaked or being leaked to the Israel. We have covered leakage of indirect imports. I could explain very briefly about each item. What's indirect imports? Indirect imports, these are imports that goes to the Palestinian as if it was produced in Israel, but actually it has been produced in a third country. What does this mean? Because of Paris Protocol, there is one custom union. There is a custom, in a sense, anything produced in Israel, it's tariff-free, goes tariff-free to Palestine. So, in fact, this imports goes to Palestine as if it was produced in Israel, but actually it was produced in a third country. In a sense, the customs on this imports has been collected by Israel but not transferred to the Palestinian. So this one item. The second item is leakage from evasion of customs duties. Basically, this smuggling from Israel to Palestine. If something has been produced in a third country and has been so, when it goes to Israel, Israel collects the customs, but it's smuggled to. So that's another item. Then leakage of administrative fees for clearance. What is this? All the Palestinian imports, almost all Palestinian imports, come through Israeli ports. So Israel collects the tax on behalf of the custom on behalf of Palestinian and then transfer it to the Palestinian. Actually, this represents 60% of the public revenue, of the Palestinian public revenue. Okay, because Israel does that, so it gets 3% as fees just to process the Palestinian imports. According to the World Bank, actually this 3% is the overcharge, and if we apply the relativity thing, in a sense, the Israeli Customs Authority spend this much time on clearing Israeli imports and this much clearing on Palestinian imports, then these fees should be 0.6 percentage point instead of 3. So that's another leakage. Now, leakage from Area C. Area C, it's represents about more than 60% of the West Bank. According to the Paris Protocol, any economic activity in Area C, Israeli or Palestinian, the Israeli authority, because Area C is under the Israeli control. It's Palestinian land, but under Israeli control. According to the Paris Protocol, Israel is supposed to collect taxes from those who are operating in Area C and then transfer it to the Palestinian. This happened only a few years at the beginning after 1994, but it doesn't happen anymore. So that's another leakage. Leakage from passenger exit fees. When Palestinian goes out of Palestine, they have to go through Israeli authority, and they have to pay Palestinian or international passenger, and they have to pay fees to process. Now, this fees originally, according to the Paris Protocol, in 1994 was $26. The division of these fees was supposed, roughly speaking, 60% goes to Palestine and 40% goes to Israel. Israel raised this $26 several times and does not transfer this money on time. And actually, Israel, I think, kept the money goes to the Palestinians in absolute terms. And it does not operate in percentage anymore. Still, if we say $26 was the fees, initially the Palestinians used to get 15%. Till now, I think 15% is the same, while the fees itself has increased substantially. That's another source of leakages. Now there is another source of leakage is basically sometimes Israel does not transfer the clearance revenue to the Palestinian. As I said before, the clearance revenue represents 60% of the Palestinian revenue, public revenue. It happens several times, and Israel keeps this money sometimes up to 2 years. Actually, if you go to the report, we have a table that shows how many times did the Israeli did that, and the amount and the period. The fact that Israel keeps this money, which is Palestinian money, and take advantage of it, they earn interest on it. And the fact that the Palestinians do not have this money, they have to borrow and they have to pay interest on it. Now, the interest that Israeli gains from this, it's much less than the interest that Palestinian pays because they borrow. And that's another source of leakage. Anyway, we have covered only this element. As I said before, these are not everything. That's what we've been able to assess. Now, in terms of the impact, how much is that? We did that for the year 2015 because this is the only year that we have data for it. In 2015, if we add the amount of leakages from these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sources, they come up to about $473 million. This represents 3.7% of GDP, or represent 18% of the total Palestinian revenue. In a sense, the Palestinian revenue could have increased by 18% if there is no leakage to Israel. This 18% was supposed to go to Palestine, instead it goes to Israel. This is 2015. But it's 1 year only, so this 3.7%, it repeats every year, and that's what we have assumed. In a sense, this happens year in and year out. Now let me just take you through about the other losses. Now, this losses has not been leaked to Israel. This losses has been lost. And it's lost because there is occupation. If there was no occupation, the Palestinians would have been able to enforce their authority on Area C, would have been able to enforce their authority on the borders.
Sorry, I'm just getting a bit confused. Can you explain some of the terms? What's the difference between lost and leaked?
I said that, but I'm going to say it. Okay. Both of them are physical cost.
Are you saying physical or fiscal?
Fiscal, revenue.
Okay.
Revenue, okay? So the difference between both of them are considered to be cost, fiscal cost, revenue lost. The difference is the first one is leaked to Israel. The first one is collected by Israel and did not go to the Palestinians. The Palestinian lost, but the Israeli gained. Other losses is basically everybody lost. The Israel did not, it is not leaked to Israel, and also it was not collected by the Palestinians.
And what's bigger, leaked or lost?
Of course, lost. Okay, because
lost
okay,
is what?
no, okay. Why it's leaked? Because we are judging everything according to the Paris Protocol. Okay, so according to the Paris Protocol, this revenue was supposed to go to the Palestinian. Okay, so the Paris Protocol is a subset of a bigger thing. Okay, that's why it's smaller. But if we are talking about the other losses, I'm going to go through it now. Okay. And actually, what we were able to cover on other losses are only 4 items, because we have no data. Okay, physical loss from Area C. Okay, Area C, as I said, 60% of the West Bank. Now, the Palestinians have no access to Area C. The Palestinians are not able to collect any revenue from Area C. The Palestinians are not able to even promote production in Area C, and that's why there are lots of revenues that could have been collected, but is not collected because of the occupation. But this revenue has not been leaked to Israel, according to the Paris Protocol again. I mean, that's the benchmark is Paris Protocol is good or bad, that's another story. In our opinion, Paris Protocol has to be changed. Now, the other item is fiscal losses under valuation. Many Palestinian traders, when they import something through Israel, they undervalue their invoices so that they pay less tax. And that's another source that's lost to the Palestinians. As a matter of fact, the Israeli lose a bit because of this as well, because they don't collect value-added taxes on this. Now, the other item is physical losses from the shuttle. That's basically smuggling from Jordan, tobacco and things like that. If the Palestinian has authority over the border crossing, they could have collected tax. Now then again, the physical losses because of non-recurrent Israeli withholding of Palestinian tax. Okay, now this what we have covered. Okay, now for your question, you've said which is bigger. I said before that the leakage was about 370% of GDP in 2015. Other losses were about 9.5% of GDP in 2015. Now, as I said before, the fiscal losses is both what's leaked and the other. So if you add this to that, then we have about 13.1% of fiscal losses every year. That's about $1.7 billion in 2015. That's 13% of what they produce. They could have gained only in revenue. As we said before, if this revenue was available to the Palestinian, they would have turned their budget deficit into surplus. Now, you have this in the PowerPoint in the presentation, but just to give you an idea and also to answer your question, the first half of the table shows the leakage, and the second half shows the other losses, and then the last row is the sum of them in value in 2015, and then as a percent of GDP, and then as a percentage of revenue lost. Again, I would like to stress, this is not a final number. This is what we were able to study. We use both information, whatever available from the Israeli side. We go to the Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics. We go to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. We go to the Central Bank of Israel. We use all official information, or based on interviews that we have conducted or our experts have conducted with Palestinian experts and officials. Now let me sum up. Okay, what we did after that, okay, as Mr. Nabil has said, is this only 1 year? Yes, it's 1 year. What we did after that, this is a repetitive thing. The only thing that's not repetitive is when Israel withheld revenue for political pressures. And that's why we assume that this percentage for GDP is repeated every year. So what we did, we assume this percentage for the period from 2017, and we sum them up. And also we make an assumption that this money, as I said, if it's leaked to Israel, so Israel take advantage of it, and therefore gain interest on it, treasury bills, on Israeli treasury bill. And of course this money is not available to the Palestinians, so the Palestinians, they have to borrow, and they have to borrow, pay high interest rate on it. So now, if we make this assumption and we accumulated these figures, we'll end up for the period from 2017, in terms of leakage, the money that has been leaked to Israel is about $12.5 billion over this 18-year period. Leakage. I'm sorry. I have to take. In terms of leakage, it's about $6.6 billion. $6.6 billion because it's you have $5.6 billion in terms of leakage plus $1 billion in interest rate that has been get, so it's $6.6 billion. Now, if we look at the cost, the total cost, which include the leakage and other losses, the sum over this 18-year period is about $48 billion over 18-year period. This $48 billion is equivalent to the 3 times the size of Palestinian economy in 2017. 3 times the size of what the Palestinians have produced in 2017. This is not trivial money. This is quite a bit of money. This could turn Palestine, the Palestinian economy, into another economy. This could turn the Palestinian economy from an economy of budget deficit to an economy of budget surplus. Now, the last part that I would like to present to you is we have a model, and we assume, what if this money were available to a Palestinian policymaker? Instead, the Palestinians, they have more revenue. So they could use this revenue, inject in the economy, and implement expansionary policy in policy to generate employment, what would have been the impact? In a sense, what if this money was not leaked, or what if this money was not lost, and was this money was injected in the economy? We made simulation with our model. I'll just show the graphs after that, but the result is the following. If the leakage money were available to the Palestinian policy maker, the $5.6 billion, not the 6.6, the 5.6 billion, this would have been able to create GDP over that period equivalent to $12.5 billion. And this money would have been able to create over that period 42,000 job opportunities, or in average about 2,300 job opportunities. This would have been able to reduce unemployment rate by about maybe 5%. Now, what if the money of the physical loss, which is leakage and other losses, has been injected in the economy? The total amount would have been $37 billion GDP in real terms. This I'm not talking about money in real term. That's again, it's about 2.7 times the size of GDP in 2017. This money would have been able to increase employment every year through in the 18 year, 111,000 jobs every year. So the impact is tremendous. The cost is tremendous. And I can show you here the simulation result. Okay, the solid line is the status quo. The solid line is the under the ongoing occupation. The dotted line is if the leakage has been injected in the economy, that term of GDP would have been moved up by that every year. The broken line, if the physical loss has been injected in the economy, in the Palestinian economy. That's in terms of GDP. In terms of employment, again, this is the employment number. Again, the solid line is the status quo, or what has happened. The dotted line is if the leaked revenue has been injected in the economy. The broken line is, okay, now what are the recommendations to member states? What we are saying is the Paris Protocol need to be revisited. Not only revisited, but need to be changed. That's actually, UNCTAD has been saying that long time ago. Now, of course, in 1993. Yeah. That's part of the Oslo Agreement, yes. It's a protocol, part of the Oslo Agreement of the establishment of the Palestinian National Authority at that time. And the Paris Protocol is the economic side of the Oslo. It says that, okay, Palestine is in the same custom envelope, and all this kind of relation, the consumption or the use of underground water, all of the economic relationship between Israel and Palestine is in Paris Protocol according to the negotiation. This is not the best thing, but that's what has been signed. What we are recommending here, or what we are telling member states, that the two sides has to sit and negotiate and discuss these issues. Instead, for the donor community to pay the Palestinian, if the Palestinians were able to get what they deserve according to the Paris Protocol, maybe they don't need to. So that's number one. Number two, the issue of fees on the processing has to be discussed. Instead of 3%, has to go down. According to the World Bank, it has to be about half a percentage point, or slightly more than half a percentage point. There is an issue also of exchanging information between the Palestinian and Israeli customs. Till now, they do work on paper-based, while they could have interconnection between the two computer systems, and this would basically put the Palestinian in a better position in assessing how much money is coming and so on. Of course, the issue of non-tariff barriers, and this has to do with the closure policy in the West Bank and the economic siege of Gaza since 2007. All of this has an impact on the revenue. Also, what we are saying that the Palestinian officers, custom officers, they should be allowed to be present at the border crossing, and they should be present in the Area C, which represents 60% of the West Bank. The whole issue of Area C has to be reconsidered, and again, Paris Protocol need to be revisited. And of course, what we are saying that the issue of two-state solution has to be considered. As long as there is occupation, we are going to have either physical leakage or physical losses. And we as UN staff, it's our job to keep track of the things. And I really thank you, and I hope I did not take much of your time. Any questions, if you have? Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Your name, please.
Arthur Macmillan, The National. Just one question. What do you expect the General Assembly to say about this report tomorrow, or what would you urge them to do?
Well, I just thought the recommendation, we made our recommendation as international civil servants, so that's our job. I think, number one, the most likely they will ask us to do another one. They are interested in keeping this on record. This could be useful for negotiation. As a matter of fact, I would like to, the Israeli, at one point of, UNCTAD was writing on this issue since 2011. And during that period, actually, the Israeli negotiated with the Palestinian, and they returned about $300 million, I think 2 years ago. So it is good to have this issue, because actually this is not only an incentive to the Palestinian, but also to the Israeli. Because ultimately this money is a Palestinian money. And they do agree to this. As a matter of fact, the indirect import, we started this back in 2010, and then we got engaged with the Central Bank of Israel. The Central Bank of Israel did not deny the issue of indirect import, but they said our calculation is a bit high. So in a sense, they ask us to have this on record. It helps in negotiation. It will help in the future negotiation. It is important to keep this thing on record, because maybe UNCTAD has the luxury of being in Geneva, so it's not in the occupied Palestinian territory. So we are not running after everyday relief issues. So I think that was the whole intent of member states, of asking us to assess, evaluate, and document. And I think they have voted already for another resolution to do the same. Yes.
Hi, thanks so much, James.
Can I have your name, please?
James Reinl, yeah.
Which agency?
Middle East Eye. I'm struggling a little bit with this. I think what you're saying is important, but I don't really understand it, and my job is to convey to my readers what it is that you're saying. So I'm wondering if you can roll us back to the beginning and try to explain. I think you're saying that Israel and Palestine agreed in 1993 to a set of financial arrangements. Israel has not lived up to those commitments, and as a result of which, that has denied the Palestinians $48 billion between 2000 and 2017.
I did not say denied. Okay. I'm saying that...
Keep it simple, please.
To start with, there is a press release. I think it's simple and...
No, it's not.
Well, I don't... I mean... Okay.
We're not economists. We're ordinary people.
What we are saying is occupation has an economic cost. So there are so many elements under this economic cost. This report focuses on the lost revenue, the physical cost. Okay? And why there is physical cost? Because there are two things. There is the Paris Protocol, that's the economic policy framework or economic relation framework between Israel and Palestine, that tells the Palestinian, you have the right to this, and the Israeli, you have the right to that. Okay? And then there is lost revenue because there is occupation. Okay? Now, if the thing was supposed, if the revenue was supposed to go to the Palestinian in line with Paris Protocol, but instead for either Israel deny or bad implementation or not implemented, okay, this considered to be leaked to Israel. Okay, the leakage in 2015 was about 3.7%. Okay, that's according to our own study, our own assessment. Okay, what we are saying that we were able to assess, but maybe there are other things. Now, if according to our study this revenue was not leaked to Israel, then there is another element of cost. This is the revenue that was supposed to be raised by Palestinian Authority or Palestinian government if there was no occupation. If the Palestinians were able to impose taxes at the rate they wish. If the Palestinians were able to operate in Area C, so that they could raise the GDP, they could raise the tax revenue. If the Palestinians were able to have their own telephone chips, because many Palestinians use the Israeli telephone companies. So these are revenue lost to the Palestinian and not leaked to the Israeli, and it's lost to the Palestinian because of occupation.
And it's money that should have gone through the Palestinian Authority. It's not a global figure for how much the Palestinian economy per se has lost.
No, these are revenue. Not GDP, not production.
So it's just for how much money should have gone through Ramallah.
Government.
Okay.
This government money. There is difference between GDP. Yeah. GDP is what you and I produce in an economy, yeah. And then revenue is what you and I pay to the government in terms of tax, or when we pay value-added tax and so on.
This is only government. It's only about revenue.
It's public revenue. Okay. What level of government? We did not get into this.
Yeah, I just wanted...
I'll take. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe, okay. No, sorry. I think just maybe to simplify that, I think what you're meaning is revenue is the same as income, because it's income from tax.
Revenue is government income.
Exactly, income.
It's not.
Exactly.
It's not the people income. It's not the state income.
Yeah, exactly. No, but what I just wanted to add was, could you give a couple of examples? I mean, I'm sure they're in the report somewhere, but just to highlight it, of the biggest forms of revenue collection that are being lost as part of that 47 billion or what have you. Just a couple of examples. You mentioned
actually,
the telecoms.
You have it there in the...
Of course. But I mean, just to elaborate, because you mentioned, that, for example...
Okay, in terms of other losses, Area C. Area C is leaked. There is leakage because there are certain operations that the government of Israel should collect the tax, profit tax or whatever, and then transfer it to the Palestinians. This is not happening. And then there is the whole Area C, which 60% of West Bank, which is under full Israeli control, and the Palestinians are not able to either increase GDP or have increased revenue from it.
No, I understand that from an economics point of view, but I'm talking about an actual human point of view. And you mentioned one example of phone chips. Now, I imagine you got your figure for that because you know how much was spent on Israeli phone chips. Therefore, you could substitute that if they were being domestically produced by Palestinians. What I'm asking for is another couple of examples of actual goods and services that translate into that lost income. Not the number, the actual goods and services. Key parts of the Palestinian economy, if you like.
Well, actually, everything in the report. I mean, for example, smuggling. Smuggling, it's very well. By the way, we look at the smuggling from Jordan. That's not money not leaked to Israel. It's a lost money to the Palestinian. But only we're able to look at the tobacco. I think the report. If you just go through it, it's not that big, and it's very well. You have subheading, so. Yeah, please. I mean, and it's easy to read. I hope so. Nabil, I'm sorry. You were.
So will you be able to break down these losses or leaks on regional basis? For example, Gaza, West Bank, Jerusalem. Do you have clear figures about, for example, Gaza or Jerusalem?
Wish if you could. I mean, our capacity is to. Okay. I'm glad that you raised this question. The economic cost of occupation, and here I'm talking economic, not only the revenue lost, We are handling only one element. It's a huge thing. And sometimes there is no methodology to do it. I would give you an example. For example, natural gas in the Mediterranean Sea. I mean, how could you calculate the cost of Israel using the natural gas that's supposed to be in Gaza water? To start with, how could you calculate the cost of a sovereign decision, not only sovereign for this generation, but sovereign for the future generation, to decide to extract a non-renewable resource? In a sense, if Israel is using the Palestinian natural gas, then Israel is taking decision not on behalf of the Palestinians of this generation, but also on the behalf of the future generation. So, no, I wish if we can do it, but we don't have the capacity to do it. And I wish also if member states would provide us with the resources that we need to do the things. But again, the economic cost of it, it's a huge concept, and it has not been done before. It should be done. It should be documented, and it's going to be useful for all parties.
Another question. Do you have recommendations to the Israeli authorities and to the Palestinian Authority, or it's only for member states?
No, we are asking the two parties to get together, and as I said before, because of our previous work and because of the World Bank and IMF picked up on us on what we have said, the two parties sat together, and the Israeli returned to the Palestinians $300 million 2 years ago. So there was a tangible impact of what we have done. Again. And I hope that they do respect our work. We do our very best to have a well-researched work, and our colleagues here and in Geneva, they wouldn't pass this report without, if they are not sure that every word we put here is defendable.
Do you mind if I ask another question?
Why not?
Sure, thank you. So there's a list with the Human Rights Commissioner in Geneva, and it's a list of all the companies, Israeli and international, that are doing business in the settlements. Do you have access to that kind of information? Is it the kind of information you'd like to have access to? Do you have any involvement in that process? And do you believe that list should be made public?
Well, if I would like to have access, I could as a UN staff. We did not. UNCTAD was not involved in this issue, but we hope that if member state ask us to do more work on this area, that would be an area that we are going to address. Well, my own personal opinion. If everything is public, then everything is transparent is a good thing. It's a good thing. Sometimes you have the issue if you don't have, and this fiscal issue, if you have only one company that produces numbers, so this shouldn't be a public information because whatever. So, but my own personal opinion, yes, they have to be public.
And do you consider the Trump administration's decision to no longer classify Israeli settlements on Palestinian soil as illegal, do you feel that sets back the objectives of your work?
As a UN staff, our position is a two-state solution. Our position is Jerusalem. Our position is the UN Security Resolution 2334. The settlement are illegal thing. This our position, and this my position as a UN staff. And everything done in these reports has to be within these bounds. And I think Secretary General of the UN has responded to this, and actually just 2 days ago in Geneva, in 29th of this month, the Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, I think the statement of the Mr. Guterres reflected this issue as well. And actually in this report also we say that at the very end, that the UN position is a two-state solution position, and settlements are illegal. Well, if you have no more questions, thank you for coming. I hope I said something useful.
Thank you.
Anyway. You are still confused?